Good evening and welcome to the Valentine's Day and President's Day edition of the Tucson Macintosh User Group meeting. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, March 19th at this same virtual location. In March, we will have Ask Me Anything, again hosted by Kevin. Thank you so much, Kevin. And Marty Gensius will return with his Apple Vision Pro to show us his vision of the Apple Vision Pro. He was on a Zoom meeting for user group leaders yesterday, I think it was. I saw part of it online, and he was there, and he's very excited about it. Also, Kurt helped me out here. Who else was?
Dan Wassink.
Yeah, Dan Wassink was there, and he was there twice. He was there once with a camera in the room showing him wearing his Apple Vision Pro, and he was on another square over here on Hollywood Squares with his avatar showing. And there were a couple other guys who had them, but were really not wearing them. It's quite an interesting thing. And it's the new way of doing computing. So he's coming back next month to show us how he's using the Vision Pro in his work, his life, and his entertainment. Okay, I would like you to take a look at the chat window because Bob Doms is just about to put in a link to the online presenter review poll. And there it is. Good timing, Bob. Thank you. Also want to remind you that we have the South Jersey Apple User Group swag. Still have a bunch of stuff to give away. I will put a link in the chat that takes you to the public website that I've set up with the stuff, showing the stuff that we have. And you need to act on this perhaps this spring. I'm going to be going to MacStock this summer, and whatever isn't sold is leaving my garage with me and going to Illinois, and it ain't coming back. So if you want some posters, now is the time to contact me and get them. Last month's winner of our Zoom meeting door prize was Jerry Cedarquist. Congratulations, Jerry. I hope you didn't spend it all in one place.
Right.
As my mother would say, don't spend it all in one place and cash that check. In March, we will draw our annual super raffle winner. How do you qualify to be in that drawing? Well, you need to be a TMUG member in good standing, i.e. have paid your dues. And you need to show up to a meeting. The more times you show up to the meeting, the more times your name will be in the hopper. And we're going to, Kurt will still be drawing with your lovely assistant, Betsy, doing the drawing for us. He says yes. Okay. That's happening next month. Are there other announcements that I have forgotten? Then we're going to move forward. Are there any for sales or wanted to buy items from the floor?
I'm sorry, but I have to go back. Are you telling me these people can tell us what they see in a Vision Pro?
I'm not positive on that. I would imagine that might take another revision or two of the Zoom software. But
no, it does screen sharing.
It does. Okay.
So
and you can do screen sharing through Zoom. I know I can do it through FaceTime.
The presentation I saw yesterday, one of the guys was showing what he sees when he looks in the machine. So you actually can see the icons floating around on the screen and your iMac screen, if that's what you want to show or whatever. You know, it's all there. And so I was very impressed with the fact that he could share what he was seeing. I thought that was great.
Okay. Thank you. I didn't see that part of it. I watched a chunk here and a chunk there and a chunk there on YouTube, but not the whole thing. So now it seems to be it's time to move forward with our regular agenda. So I'm going to turn it over to Ridge if he's ready. And he's
Yes, I
waving.
am. How's my
waving ready.
audio, people?
Your audio is adequate.
Okay,
So Ridge is going to give us the tech update and the security update for the month. Take it away, Ridge.
okay, let's see. Here we are in February. Well, let's see how this goes. And our software updates. Here are the things that are probably good for everybody. 1Password got updated, and so did Acrobat and Reader from Adobe, and BB Edit that Tom mentioned earlier is now 15.01. And Carbon Copy Cloner and Chrome and Firefox got updated. And when you see the word through, that means there were several updates in between, let's say Chrome for Mac, the 234 up to 121, 184, and so forth. And also Graphic Converter, our favorite program from Lemsky Soft in Germany, is updated in LibreOffice. If you're using that instead of the Microsoft Office, it got updated. And Little Snitch is updated. And if you like to look and see what every Macintosh ever made is all about, Mac Tracker got updated as well. And if you're still using Microsoft Office, that had 2 updates that were significant. And then there's Tech Tool Pro for those who use that utility from way back when. And Quicken got updated, and Zoom we're running now is 5.17.5. And Apple was busy as well. They had an AirPods Max firmware update, and the HomePod software got updated, and Safari for Ventura and Monterey got updated. And Monterey itself and Ventura and Sonoma had updates as well. So if you're using those, you want to make sure you have the latest. And iOS and iPad OS, you can see that there were 4 significant updates there. And the professional programs from Apple Logic Pro is updated, and the watch got 2 updates, and tvOS got an update, and Vision OS for the new headset, that's got 2 software updates. So, and coming under beta, we have Sonoma, another iPad and OS and iOS update, and tvOS and watchOS and Vision OS is coming with, that's already 1.1, that's in beta. And Xcode, if you're a programmer, that's coming as well. Now, here's some Vision Pro stuff that I picked up now that the unit has been released. And 18 minutes after the pre-orders were being taken on January 19th, the stocks were sold out, and the shipping dates started slipping from February 2nd to several months away, and about 180,000 were sold on the launch day. And they're expecting to sell maybe 500,000 this year. And their prices are down there at the bottom. If you want the 1 terabyte one, you'll spend pretty close to $4,000. And here's those people who got their Vision Pro early. Some of them were going to eBay to offer theirs to others for much more bigger price. And then this picture shows you that it comes in a surprisingly large box. And now that it's shipping, thanks to iFixit.com, here's what the Vision Pro consists of. And if it needs repairs later on, Apple says that can cost up to almost $2,400. So it makes Apple Care seem like a sensible purchase. But that Apple Care will cost you almost $500. And you can only get the Apple Care two methods. At the time you order the device online or in the store, or if you forget, then you've got to go to an Apple store in person. Their first quarter financial report shows that revenue was 119.6 billion, was up 2% year over year. And their profit was up 16%, and iPhone sales and services were up, and they declared a dividend. Now they have a new retail store that they opened, the 7th one in Seoul, South Korea. And this is reminiscent of the stores that used to open up in the United States. Look at all the people outside holding up their iPhones to get pictures of all the folks that are out there. And then inside, when they finally opened the doors, that was kind of crowded as well. And here's a thing about Mac operating system. The Tidbits reported that several folks, some of whom are developers, were getting Sonoma force installed on their Macs without their specific permission, and they could not say no to the install. And another website, Macintosh Online, said that Mac users, including longtime experts, were reporting that Apple is force installing Sonoma on their computers against their will, even when their automatic updates setting is turned off. So if this happens to you and you looks like Sonoma is going to be installed, do not click on the X button, but click the more information button and restart your Mac to disregard this unwanted attempt to install Sonoma without permission. And as far as nostalgia goes, back in January 24th was the 40th anniversary of the Mac. So here that Mac is again on the left. And the release of the very first iMac back in August of 1998. Now, Macworld magazine also had its 40th anniversary on that day. And here's the first pic of the entire Apple Mac developing team that appeared in that first issue of Macworld magazine. And here's what the latest rumors are, that the iPad Air and iPad Pro may get an organic LED screen and M3 chips, maybe this next month. And M3 versions of the 13-inch MacBook Air and 15-inch MacBook Air are on the way for some time this spring, maybe next month. And Apple is supposedly working on a folding iPhone that may be released in 2026. What we'll, as always, we'll always have to see whether these come true or not. They're just rumors. And of course, if you would like a TMUG cloth logo and a pin, contact me or Kurt Blanchard, and we'll see that we get one. And thanks for your attention to this part of the program. And now we'll talk about items of security interest. And there were security fixes in Adobe Acrobat and Reader, and Google updated Chrome for the Mac up through the 184 update, and they had 8 total fixes. And Firefox got updated quite a lot from 122 to 123 with 32 total security fixes. And Microsoft also updated Office with 1 security fix in their latest update. And Apple updated all of these items with security fixes. Their automatic behind-the-scenes XProtect anti-malware software was automatically updated to version 2186. And their Magic Keyboard firmware had a security update. And of course, iOS and iPad OS had a bunch of fixes there, you can see. So did Safari. Monterey, Ventura, and Sonoma also got security fixes. So you want to make sure you're up to date on those. tvOS, if you're using that, got a 17.3 security update, and the watchOS had had a good 12 fixes in their 10.3 update. The Vision operating system 102 had security fixes in it. And now, as far as the latest cybercrime information, the Jam Threat Labs group discovered a new malware threat on the Mac operating system, which is similar to another malware that was discovered several years ago. And that's being distributed through pirated software hosted in China. So that when the user launches the pirated application, a malicious dynamic library attached to the application uses a backdoor built with an open source tool, which allows malware to avoid detection by antivirus software. And that malware then communicates with the attacker, and that attacker can then load software on the target Macintosh and control it. And here the name of the pirated applications where the Gem Threat Labs group discovered the malware that include the programs Final Shell, Microsoft Remote Desktop Client, Navicat Premium, Secure CRT, and Ultra Edit. So stay away from those programs, I guess, would be the best advice. And then there's a Chinese state-backed research institute from China's capital that claims to have discovered how to decrypt device logs for Apple's AirDrop feature, which allows the government to identify phone numbers and email addresses of those who share content. The Chinese Communist Party has a long history of censoring its people and controlling what internet sites can be visited in that country. And AirDrop became very popular in China because the function completely disguises the sender's contact details. That transmission does not take place via the internet or cellular phone network, but from iPhone to iPhone via Bluetooth and a local Wi-Fi network that makes it difficult for authorities to get the identification of the senders and allows the local protesters to privately communicate. So now the government says they can decrypt the information that is sent in hash values. So Apple is supposedly working on a secure fix to AirDrop. And the makers of LastPass software manager issued a warning that LastPass on the Apple App Store is fraudulently impersonating the real app. LastPass is one of the many password managers available, although it has had its share of controversy, but now it has issued an alert concerning an alleged fraudulent copy of its application. And they say that they said that LastPass would like to alert their customers to a fraudulent application attempting to impersonate the LastPass application on the Apple App Store. And they said that in a blog post. That app in question is called LastPass Password Manager and lists Parvati Patel as the developer. And you can see that the application attempts to copy the branding and user interface, but the close examination shows misspellings and other indicators that the application is fraudulent, including the name of the program. It's not LastPass, but LastPass. Bitdefender researchers discovered a new backdoor malware targeting Mac operating system devices. The backdoor is dubbed Trojan Mac Rust Door. It's written in a Rust programming language and can steal specific files, archive them, and upload them to the command and control server. And it has commands that allow it to gather and unload files and gather information about the machine. And it masquerades as a Microsoft Visual Studio update. So if you don't have or use that software, you should be okay. How about another comment on the Apple App Store? And this is from the famous Macworld Online big blogger who calls himself the Macalope, and that's his picture. he said the Apple App Store is either good or it's bad, but it's not. There are a lot of things wrong with the App Store, yet even though its review process is far from perfect, which was being recently complained about, but it is still a significant contributor to making the iOS one of the safest modern operating systems, if not the safest. Well, thanks for your attention. And of course, the thing to get out of this presentation is that you should stay safe by using the internet safely and not downloading questionable stuff. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ridge.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Ridge.
Rich.
Appreciate all your work.
There we go.
Bob Doms caught me lying accidentally. When I said earlier on that Jerry Cedarquist got the door prize last month, that was the previous month. Last month it was Kevin, and he won the Xerox laser printer, and he has that now. And from what I've heard, he likes it. So stay with us. There's more prizes to come. Along those lines, we would like to have an in-person event sometime in the future. The weather's getting better. If anyone knows of a venue that we can get for cheap or free to have a in-person event, please let me know, or let any of the officers know, and we'll or come to the board meeting on the first Wednesday of the month and let us know, and we can work something out. Now, moving forward on the agenda, we're going to turn it over to Chris Wesselman. He's going to do the accessibility minute. Are you ready to do that, Chris?
I am ready, Bob.
Go right ahead.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I have put 2 links into the chat, and you can see they're from iPhone Life, where the first one is, and the second one's from support.apple.com, my old server near and dear at AppleCare. iPhone Life has a daily tips kind of thing, and one of the things that came out, which I thought would be good to share, is how to adjust the haptic touch on your phone. And over time, a lot of us feel like, we're tapping on the phone, but it's not exactly where we think it's supposed to be, or it's not responding quite the way we think it should. And we're not sure, is the phone changing or are we changing? I know I'm certainly doing this. Well, I went through this exercise, and it's if you open the link, it's got a nice layout there. And it takes you into accessibility and into haptic and into touch and haptic touch. And it's basically standard, fast, or slow. And I thought, well, surely I need to put it on fast. Turns out I needed to put it on slow. Okay, so what do I know, right? In other words, but I think there are things like this. This is an easy one. The second link I put in here is for getting into more of the nitty-gritty on the actual touch stuff on your phone. And I would caution, if you get it all confused with that, and you think it is something that you need, go to Apple support. And one of the things I found lately is that if I send Apple support a text message, they will call me back, and it'll usually be an appropriate person who can help me right away. As opposed to just waiting on the phone. You may get somebody in, far-flung places on the planet who don't have very much experience, and you need to get through them to the next level. One of the ways to avoid that is just to send a text message and a chat message. But
that works great.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, Kevin. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I would be, once again, I can remember about 6 years ago starting to play with some of this accessibility stuff. And I got my phone into a really weird state. And it took me about 3 days to figure out how to turn it off. So, be careful on some of the more heavy duty stuff and don't hesitate to call Apple support or send a text message and, tell them I need help with an accessibility situation. And I'm sure they have special support people that do that. And I know Melissa does a lot of this stuff. Kevin probably does too, but I'm really big on this stuff because I'm finding that, as I'm getting older, I'm about to turn 77, and there are things that, don't work as well on the phone for me. For one thing, I wish I had a little bit bigger keyboard because my accuracy tapping on the screen, I always seem to be off by 1 or 2 letters in a word. And it's so annoying getting it fixed. But if anybody knows a bigger keyboard, let me know.
Hold your
but
iPhone
anyway,
sideways.
I could. It seems I may try that. It just doesn't seem quite the same to me. I don't know why. But anyway, now, does anybody have questions on this? Because if you feel that you're tapping on your phone, we use these things all day long. If it's not quite responding the way you'd like it to, there are probably things you can adjust. There are hundreds of adjustments that can be made to these phones. And a lot of that is aimed at people who need those adjustments because of real physical challenges. But anyway, so that is my accessibility minute for tonight, unless somebody actually wants me to walk through it, because I've got it on my screen and I could share it if you want to see it.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay. Well, in the interest of time, Bob, we can move on.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. We're going to move forward to stolen device protection. Roger has made a presentation about this to his YouTube live group, which I highly recommend that everybody listen to that live on YouTube or later on YouTube as a recording. It's something that if you have a iPhone, it's quite probable that you want to turn this on. But I'm going to let Roger explain it. Roger, go ahead.
There's no audio, Roger.
You're muted, Roger.
Okay, are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right, stolen device protection. So this is a feature of iOS 17.3. So make sure you have 17.3 before you go looking to set this up. It is not on by default, so you will have to turn it on. So here's an article about a passcode thief that used iPhones to rob various people of a total of at least $2 million. And what he did, he would be in a public place. He would watch somebody unlock their iPhone with their passcode. Then he would grab it out of their hands, run away, and change settings and look for financial apps and other information that would lead him to money, and then he would steal it. There was also an article in the Wall Street Journal about this that got a lot of attention. So the way you turn this on is you go into settings and select Face ID and passcode. Then you swipe down to the section for stolen device protection. Tap the link to turn on protection. So it looks like this. So this is down a ways. Again, you have to scroll down till you see stolen device protection, and then you want to turn it on. So what does it do when you turn it on? Well, it is smart enough to know what to do based on where you are. So it prevents the thief from getting into all your information, and we'll talk about what that entails here in just a second. So it won't take effect if you're in a familiar location such as your home or your workplace. But if the phone is in a strange place, then you'll have to confirm your identity with Face ID or Touch ID before you can perform any of these actions. So it prevents the use of passwords and passkeys, the use of payment methods saved in Safari. It won't let you turn off lost mode, and it won't let you erase all your content and settings. It also prevents applying for a new Apple Card, viewing Apple Card virtual card numbers, taking certain Apple Cash and savings actions, and using the iPhone to set up a new device. In addition, it won't let you change your Apple ID, won't let you sign out of your Apple ID, and won't let you update your Apple ID account. And it won't allow you to remove Face ID or Touch ID. So it also, most importantly, prevents changing your iPhone passcode, which is how the thief thinks he's going to get the keys to your kingdom. And he won't be able to reset your settings or turn off Find My or even turn off the stolen device protection. So the moral to this story is, if you can, make sure your Face ID or your Touch ID is working. If it's not working, then redo it. And that way you won't have to be in the situation where you're punching in your code in a public place where somebody could watch you. So if you have to enter your code in public, check your surroundings and then shield your phone from view so that somebody can't see what you're doing. And you should also use a combination of letters and numbers, not just numbers, because that's easy to spot. But if you're using letters and numbers, that's going to be harder for the thief to figure out what your code is. So this is only if you haven't been able to reinstall your Face ID or your Touch ID. I have clients that say, my fingerprints don't work. You can have 5 Touch ID fingerprints on your iPhone. So if it doesn't work on your index finger, try your thumb or try your other fingers, and maybe you'll come across one that will work. So that's the best thing to do, because then if you're using your Touch ID or your Face ID, you have eliminated the problem. So that is it. Simple. Any questions?
So Roger, do you see a downside?
The downside to what?
To turning it on?
Kevin does.
Oh, lots. It's a totally useless feature. And from experience, what it does, the way it creates a favorite is anytime you've used your phone and you're there for more than 5 minutes. So if you're at say you go to a brand new bar, you need to get to your phone and somebody's shoulder surfing you, you type in your phone number, it makes you use Face ID the first time. Not a problem. Second time it's already a favorite, they could shoulder surf you then. Okay, that's a favorite location. Somebody steals your phone, they go out, they come back, or they go to the bathroom, you're in the same location. They have full access to your phone. You don't need, until Apple allows you to set a place as a favorite location. It's not worth having. You could turn off all your favorite locations and not use it that way, where it always requires that. But anytime you make any sort of change, you have to wait an hour in between the time you wanted to get a change. Apple will send you a notification saying your hour is up. You have 10 minutes to do this change. You don't, if you miss that window, you have to wait another hour to do something. For me, since my Apple ID is a very common, since it's my first name, my Apple ID gets locked a lot. I had this turned on and I went to buy something in the App Store. It says Apple ID lock. You have to unlock your phone. So I went in and put in my password to send it to my phone to unlock it. It says you have privacy protection on. You have to wait an hour. So I couldn't make the purchase at the App Store I wanted. And until Apple fixes all of the bugs in it and everything else, I would say stay away from it. Stay far away from it. And that's my opinion, though.
Yeah, I know, because on my iPad, at least, the Touch ID doesn't work at all, and it doesn't have Face ID. And I've redone it a couple of times, and it's the entry level 9th generation. But I think there could be a level of difference here between folks. I mean, we're not like friends going out to the the local bars every night. I don't think. Okay, in our generation here. However, we've been known to leave phones behind in restaurants and things like that. So
Right.
it's sort of like,
But the whole thing, the whole purpose of this is stop people from shoulder surfing you.
Yeah.
And that's really is an issue in bars and restaurants in big cities, not in something in Tucson.
That's kind of where I'm going. I don't see anybody in this group being vulnerable to that, but obviously I could be wrong. I mean, I have second thoughts about turning it on myself just for that reason, because I've seen it where, now I don't know, I've known people who had a lot of trouble with Face ID. Either something to do with their glasses or the hats they wear or something. It works fine for me, but well, let's turn it around. Does anybody think this is something they really should use?
I think there's something you should watch, and when they fix it, which is going to happen pretty fast,
Yeah.
because this is such a big screw up, that then it seems like it's something worth doing.
Roger, what do you think? Do you have any clients using it, and how do they feel?
I don't know who is using it. I haven't heard any, complaints about having any
Yeah.
problems with it, but I don't know who's turned it on.
I've turned it on.
Have you had do you know where your favorite locations are?
Not yet. I figure I'll turn it on and see what it can learn, and then I'll go in and start digging around. The only thing that I've noticed is that as I'm driving, I mean, you're not supposed to be handling your phone anyway, and I have the USAA app that dings me if I do. So I keep it in the cradle, but I notice there's times like, say I just want to listen to a podcast and I'm using Hey Yes Lady to unlock it. Sometimes it'll ask me for my, and I don't have my glasses on at the time or something like that. And then it'll want my passcode. And so then I have to wait till I'm at a stop sign and hope that nobody's shoulder surfing anywhere. So it's a little bit annoying, but I
I get
mean,
the same thing whether that's on or off. That's
mhm.
typical security for Face ID.
Okay. Maybe it's not that then.
Right. What this does, this will tell you that when you go, say you're at a brand new location and you go to make a change in your settings. Okay. Not
Okay. I
necessarily
haven't
turn
done that
on
yet.
your phone, but go in and want to change your Apple ID or unlock your account. It'll give you a second warning and then tell you you have protection on because this is an unknown place. You have to wait an hour.
I haven't
if-
experimented with that yet. I turned it on as soon as it came out, only because I have teenagers and their friends are little hackers. So I want them to have it on, but I've already like jumped through the hoop of like I locked all of our Apple IDs out by turning on the screen time feature and setting a
Right.
different passcode with it. So I mean that right there will prevent somebody from shoulder surfing, seeing your PIN, because I don't know how careful my kids are being. And I mean, my family members aren't the most, and there's a lot of people that are not the most situationally aware. And so they'll be, you know, talking on a speakerphone, giving out their credit card numbers, and you know, things like that. It's like, think about where you are, and you know, it's the same as if you're getting your money out of a Mac machine, out of an ATM. You know,
Right.
you're gonna kind of do this. It's the same thing as, and I'll talk about this in my presentation, but be situationally aware when you're doing this kind of stuff. I'm one of those people that if I go to a gas station that I don't frequent, talk about, you know, frequent locations, I'm a creature of habit because it's more secure. I do tend to go to the same gas stations all the time as much as I can help it, because those are places that I trust and they're monitored. But if I do happen to go to a gas station that I haven't frequented, I will go and, you know, see if there isn't, not that this happens much anymore, but if there isn't a contactless way of getting gas and paying for it, I will wiggle the credit card slot to make sure that it doesn't have something attached to it. It's
Right.
just me in my tinfoil hat.
Yeah, that's why I always use QT, because I can use my watch. And bam, it goes right through, and no questions, no, you know, all that other junk that you have to do yes, no, maybe, and you just fill up the car.
Do you get a receipt when you use your Apple Watch for gas?
It asks.
Yes,
If
Okay.
if the
Yes, you
printer
do.
works,
yes, you can.
Okay, that's the main reason I haven't used it, is because we keep receipts. Sue is well, she
Yeah.
just shredded receipts from 2010 last week. So
I do the same thing. In fact, I've been wanting Apple. I keep messaging them and telling them, can we please, please, please have the ability to put memos and things in our transactions, because I hate having to deal with the receipts, but I do.
Well, you can photograph them.
Mhm.
But hey, getting back to what Melissa was saying though, in the situational awareness, we'll come back to it, but you know, if I were traveling overseas or in and out of airports, it could be a real different thing, but I'm not, right? And like Kevin said, it's just sort of laid back in Tucson kind of thing. But
Right.
I mean, there may be a place for this. Don't get me wrong, but anytime something like is a total solution, I get skeptical. You know, like,
Yeah.
okay, how could this go wrong?
Have
You know,
teenagers.
and also
Yeah.
what the problem is that they're trying to solve.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
even Melissa, who's probably one of the younger people here, and that was a compliment there.
Thank you.
She
I'll take it while I
probably
can get it.
she probably doesn't go to a place that would have a lot of people up against each other, where when you need to pull out your phone, you have somebody looking over your shoulder.
I absolutely try to avoid that. Just
Right.
because I'm a germ freak too.
So having the phone, like having that turned on in your house, the only thing it does is puts a delay on certain things that you want to do. It doesn't stop somebody from picking up your phone, because your home is your favorite location. It's your home.
Right.
You
It's
know?
another reason for having an Apple Watch too.
Mhm.
You know,
Right.
and you know, these transit situations, like, you know, could you imagine going through the New York subway and holding up your iPhone to the reader? You know, like, I don't think so. I'm not gonna hold my phone up like that. But
Start as you do travel around, start watching people, just like I like to people watch just from the human behavior standpoint and see what people do. You know, are people aware? Since that Washington Post article came out, I mean, Joanna Stern does a really great job of being really critical. I love her stuff. But just watch and see what kind of things people do. I mean, everybody knows when somebody holds up an iPad to take a picture, right? So, you know, just keep an eye and see, you know, if people are actually entering their passcodes. I mean, I see it all the time. So
Right.
Okay, let's try to close this out. David, did you have your hand up? Do you have a question?
No, I was just going to comment that we have it set on all of our devices. And ever since it was made available, I think Roger brought it up a month or two back. But we have not had any problems with it. It's just I guess the
Okay.
situations everybody described as kind of individual situations. My
Well, I
main
know that Chris Wesselman, has been seen in a lot of raves recently, and maybe even arrested by the police, but he's not going to admit that.
One last comment on this. I just pulled up my significant locations. And it just shows the fry store that I went to this afternoon for 5 minutes is now listed as a significant location. I didn't use my phone while I was there.
Is that a GPS
No,
indication?
no, I have 119 records that are listed as significant locations. And those are places that I've been to in a store for more than 5 minutes or so.
Yeah,
Okay, so this is obviously
That's
something we'll
wrong.
need to revisit as the software gets updated. I'm going to move forward with the next presentation, which is our own Mac Mommy, the Melissa Davis, and she's going to talk about passkeys. What are they? How do you make one? Do you want them? Do you need them? Please, Melissa, take it away.
Muted.
How's that? Is that better?
Great.
Okay.
yeah,
Great.
Can everybody hear me okay?
yes.
Okay. I'm going to paste some things into the chat, and this is just for you to have like a little takeaway, like a reference for later, because I've been researching this stuff for a long time. It really piques my interest. I've been listening to podcasts and reading articles. So this is a PDF that I'm pasting into the chat, and the links on it are live. Don't click on it now, but go ahead and download it because it's like a handout. I want you to have that so that you can refer to it later. And then I'm also going to post in here this YubiKey passkey infographic. This was another thing that I found online that I thought was a really good reference. It's funny. This topic is like, it's simple and it's complicated. It's simple and it's complicated. So I don't know that we really need 35 minutes for it, but I'm going to try to do my best to get a handle on it. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and I want to try something here. I didn't want to do like a live demonstration because I wasn't sure how that was going to turn out. So I have a bunch of screenshots that I took as I was doing these things. And I basically have a PDF of them. I can close that now. And I want to make sure that you can see my PDF. So for example, if I open this up, get that back open. I want to make sure that you can see this because normally we do a keynote and I have a keynote too. But I also have a PDF that has a bunch of the stuff on it. Okay, let me get to the beginning.
We still see the grid of people.
You see the what?
We don't see your screen.
Okay, I'm going to click share. I want to make sure I get the right desktop. So I'm going to select so I can select individual ones. I think I'm going to start with, I think I'm just going to share the whole screen and tell me if you can see. I'm going to choose desktop 1. Let me move that over. Okay, so can you see what I'm showing you? The passage
It says,
let's get
let's
started.
get started.
Okay, and is it filling the screen enough?
Uh-huh.
Okay, good. All right, and then if I switch, you can see this then too, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have everything kind of positioned, so I just want to make sure it was going to work. Okay, and then I can close this. Okay, so let me play this, and then I have that in full screen. Is that filling the screen?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
ma'am.
Okay, so this is my presentation. What are passkeys, and will they grant our wish for a passwordless future? How many people, show of hands, I can see a few of you. How many of you have heard of passkeys? Have you at least heard of what they are? Good. And maybe some people have an inkling of what they are. It's very, very, very simple, really. It's, let me see if I can advance this. What is a passkey? very simply, it's a passkey is a safe and easy replacement for a password. It's a piece of data that's made up of very complex math called cryptography. I mean, that's just as simple as I can get it. There are articles and podcasts and videos and things, and you can watch people do all kinds of demonstrations about the math and how it's hashed and this and that. In one of my experiments, I changed a bunch of the numbers, but this was what I was able to get out of when I copied and pasted one of the things. So that just gives you an idea of what it might look like if you were to copy and paste it, but that's not how they work. Should you use passkeys? Yes, you should absolutely use passkeys. It's not necessarily a new technology. Passkeys have been around. They're just they're not mainstream. I will say not everybody's using them, and not all of the websites are developed for them just yet either. But the technology has actually been around for over a decade. And there's something called FIDO Alliance. It's a type of standard. So, I mean, a lot of people here have some kind of background in technology. So you probably understand what a standard is. It's a way of doing something. And so a lot of these companies got together, the big ones, Apple, Microsoft, Google, they joined this alliance and they all said, okay, we're going to agree on a standard and we're going to put this together and everybody's going to use it and it's going to be the same everywhere. They are much more secure. This is why you should use a passkey. They're much more secure than passwords and their associated parts. You've got the secret questions, you've got the answers, you've got the SMS codes, the email codes, the authentication codes, the TOTP, which is that password that only shows for like 30 seconds. That's a time-based one-time passwords, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many pieces, there's so many moving parts to a password. And that's why we end up having to write them down, which you shouldn't do, use a password manager. There's all these ways that we can store and work with our passwords. And there's all these different parts to them. And it's really just so complicated. You're supposed to, make it really unique, and it's supposed to have all these, characters. And then, sometimes you'll log in and you'll get to a page and it says, you think you have like the best password, or you used a password manager to generate it. And it tells you, nope, sorry, you shall not pass. It's not good enough. You needed to have a character. Oh, but you can't have that character. Well, why didn't you tell me that? They're really frustrating. In my line of work, I'm an IT consultant. I go to people's homes. I work remotely with people. I teach them how to use password managers. There's people here that know that that's kind of my jam. I do enjoy teaching people about security, but I really sympathize with people when they're kind of like wanting to tear their hair out, because it is really complicated and it doesn't just work as fluidly as it should. And so it can be really annoying. That's why I have these, I just want to roll my eyes sometimes. And I know people just get really overwhelmed. One of the things that, about passkeys is that they're brand new, right? Like I just said, they've been around for a while, but they're brand new in that a lot of people are just now starting to hear about them. More and more people are starting to podcast and talk about them. You might have even seen, as you're in a website, something pop up saying, do you want to use a passkey? There's not that many yet, but you're going to start seeing that. And so when I'm giving this presentation and when I'm going to show you some of these demonstrations, one of my goals is that I want to get people to kind of change their mindset. I want to go from FUD to FAD. And what do I mean by that is, one of the reasons why passkeys might take a long time to adopt is because people have this fear, uncertainty, and doubt around something that feels brand new. When you say this is a password replacement, well, how does it work? And the answer is just, it's so simple. Like when I give you the demonstrations, you're gonna be like, is that it? I know there's a lot of people that when they switch from Windows to Mac, they would just, they would get so tripped up by it because they were overthinking it. They're so used to having to answer this question and do this and run antivirus and like all these things. And it just ends up being so much more simpler than that. And that's kind of how passkeys are. It's a very, very simple thing to use. It's very, very complicated as far as what goes into it. But in order for us to use it, it's actually so much more simpler that you're going to feel like it's kind of scammy. So I'm kind of giving you that heads up. That's the fear and the uncertainty and the doubt part of it. You're going to since it feels like it's new, you might fear it. You might be feeling like, well, it's so simple. How can it be safe? Like it feels like it's dangerous, or you don't have enough knowledge about it, or you doubt that you don't have the confidence that it's actually going to work. And so that's what I aim to do today. That's my goal, is to get us to face what this information is. If I can educate you about it and show you what it looks like, then I can dispel that fear. And then when it comes time for you to try it, you can learn how to adapt. Once you've looked at the resources that I'm handing out and you see what it looks like, that'll be you gaining knowledge so that you can practice your security with this new type of technology. And then as you start to adapt to it, you'll feel like you can really defend yourself. Whereas with passwords, a lot of times the problem is that, sure, you can use a password manager and everything, but all of the different pieces that make up a password, a login credential, they can all be phished. They can all be, people can be tricked into giving that information over. Whereas passkeys are basically unphishable. You can't phish the information. There isn't anything to know. A passkey is basically two components. It's a private key and a public key. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. You're also going to hear people say things like password managers. I mean, we're always talking about 1Password. We're always talking about using a password manager to do all of this stuff. It's what helps us store things. It's what helps us keep track of this stuff. We just would lose our minds if we didn't use password managers for a lot of this stuff. But more and more, the password managers have now become more than just a password manager. And now, as I'm doing this research, I'm hearing the term credential manager used more and more. And that's how I'm probably going to start referring to it. Even though we have things like 1Password, I kind of have to wonder if they're going to end up changing the name in the future. But we should really start referring to these tools as credential managers, especially as we start to move away from passwords and we just start storing credentials. And what I mean by that is credit cards and social security numbers and banking information. Those are all things that you need as credentials to get at your information. These are three of the main password managers that I've seen a lot of good reviews about and that I've actually kind of messed around with myself. I personally use 1Password. I think a lot of you know that. And out of these three, as far as of today, all three of these companies are part of the FIDO Alliance, and I'll show you what that is in a little bit, where basically they are committed to working together and making passkeys a reality for everybody, and working within their password managers to store passkeys and make it so that you can easily set them up and use them to log in case you're the type of person that doesn't want to have all of your stuff in one particular cloud. So for example, the Apple ecosystem, the Microsoft ecosystem, or the Google ecosystem. If you want to be agnostic and use all the different kinds, you can use any one of these password managers to store your passkeys, and you can kind of move around from device to device, from platform to platform. Whereas if you just kind of put, quote unquote, all of your eggs in one basket, if you're just in the Apple ecosystem, then you have to use iCloud. But I've actually figured out a way to use both, so I'll show you that in a little bit. But as of right now, 1Password is the only one that is actually moving forward and helping people log in with passkey integration. And they already have a beta program that you can sign up for, where you can create a test account and actually learn how to use a passkey to unlock your 1Password vault. So they're kind of ahead of the game as compared to the other two. And then I'm going to show you the demonstration next, but basically the answer is yes if you just believe. That's the short answer. Can we have a passwordless future? Can we move away from passwords? Can we start adopting passkeys and using them everywhere? And so yes, the answer is yes, but you have to believe in it. You have to learn about it, and you have to start adapting it and starting to learn how to use it in your life, and think about, how are you going to keep your device safe? Where are you going to use it? When are you going to use it? Be on the lookout for the stuff. That's what I have as far as slides go. And then I'm going to show you the demonstration that I have lined up. So what I did basically is I thought, okay, well, I'm going to show you what this actually looks like in case people are still trepidatious about it. Like what does a passkey look like? I mean, we're so used to so many pieces of information. We know what a login looks like in our password manager or in our iCloud or on our sticky notes or wherever it is that you keep your passwords. You know, you've got to have the first part, the username. You know, you've got to have the password, and then you've got to have it. If you are still writing them out, you have to make sure that you can read your own handwriting, or that for the sake of digital legacy, somebody else can read your own handwriting. There's all these, and then, you know, they ask you a security question. Well, where are you going to put that? So you have to keep track of all these different pieces. When it comes to a passkey, it is just so simple. There's really only a button that you click, and it basically walks you through the whole process. So I decided to go out and try some of these demos. And what's really cool about the handout that I gave you is that you'll see on that page that has the PDFs on it at the bottom here, it has all the links that you'll need. And so when you click on those, you'll be able to see the links for all the references that I used to do the research. And so, for example, I'm going to start with these up here. So these are demonstrations that you can actually click on and give it a try. So if you want to see and feel what it looks like, I encourage you to do that. Okay, where is here it is. So this is, I'm just going to kind of walk you through the steps and kind of see what it looks like step by step to go to a website, find out if it's got passkeys available and how you're going to set it up. So here's an example. Now this is a company. I guess it's like a company within a company. It's Buy One Password. And I don't know exactly what the terminology is, but basically Passage is one of these companies where they're a type of developer and they make a product. And their product is basically if you have a company or a website or an app or something, and you want to implement, as you're going to want to, you want to implement passkeys so that your clients, your customers, your end users can log in. They basically kind of walk you through it, and they give you the code and the tools that you need to implement that in your company. And so this isn't necessarily a demonstration, but it is something where I found that I could register for a passkey. And so I liked the interface. And so I took some pictures of it as we're going along. So the first step in most all of these scenarios you'll see is a place where you're going to register. And right now, on the face of it, it looks just like you're going to create a login, a regular account where you're going to end up having to create a password. This is usually where people roll their eyes and say, oh, here we go. Now I got to come up with a password. How am I going to do it? You're either the type of person who puts strings of words together and, sprinkles in a couple of numbers and, a place where you went on your honeymoon or something. But that's a lot of thought. That's a lot of work. That's one of the biggest problems with passwords is that it's a burden on the user. It's a huge burden to have to come up with all of this information on the fly. Now, let's say you're also the type of person, oh, well, I have a protocol that I follow. I have this pattern that I use. What I do is if I'm faced with this, for example, I say, okay, I have this special number. I'm going to use like, say, my birthday or one of my kids' birthdays, and I'm just going to put the word register in it or passage or, some word that's part of what this is. Well, you and everybody else does that. So that's why that's a bad way to create a password. Everybody thinks that they're really clever doing that. And for a long time, that did work. But now the robots and the hackers, they all know this stuff. So they just say, all right, we're just gonna, here's a new account. It's called Passage. We're just gonna throw this robot at it and say how many people use the word passage in their password. And they start from there and then you just keep breaking it down. So it gets really easy to crack that way. The next step that you do, so forget about all that stuff. Forget about everything that I just said. When you're gonna set up a passkey, this is where you don't have to have any anxiety anymore. You can forget about having to create a password. You can forget about having to come up with a question and an answer. What was your kindergarten teacher's first name? What's your mother's maiden name? All of this stuff that, I always say, my friend and I always say, you should never, if you're going to do that, you should never, ever give it the correct answer. You should always make up something, some kind of gobbledygook. As long as you can get to it, in your password manager, the answer could be tinfoil instead of your mother's maiden name. It doesn't have to be the right answer. But again, You don't have to worry about that. That's all. You can just throw that out the window. Because the next step is after you put in your email, you click a button. It says register with passkey. And then if you run into a problem, they'll let you know. They always kind of like let you know like every step of the way. It talks about what a passkey is. If you have, so since it's the Macintosh users group, all of my stuff is going to be Apple related. So if you have it turned on in your system settings, you can save passkeys to iCloud. So you're going to see a combination of things because I was doing both. I was doing both using iCloud to store these passkeys, and I was also trying to store them in 1Password. So this is what it looks like if you're about to save a passkey. You give it your Touch ID, and then it says welcome. And then that's it. I mean, that's really all that happens. You can see up in the corner, I was like, whoa, did it do it? And the reason I know that it did it was because up in the corner, there's my profile. So that's all there was to it. I entered my username, which is my email address, and then I clicked the button. It asked me for my fingerprint, and it saved it in my iCloud. This is what it looks like if I go to log back in. Now that it's saved, I go and I put my mouse pointer in that text box. It detects that I'm on this website, and the computer knows that I've already saved a passkey. So it offers for me to fill it in. I don't have to even type my email address. All I do is just put my fingerprint on the fingerprint reader. And then, of course, I could enter my password if I wanted to, but I'm using Touch ID. This is what it looks like after I've logged in and I've created the passkey. This is what it looks like in the Apple ecosystem. This is what it looks like on my Mac, in my system preferences, in the password section. You can see right there, that's where I am. Now, I happen to have 1Password open behind this because I was trying to do both, but this is what it looks like in your passwords. So it saved it. There's some features in here. You can group them. You can add a note. I just put this note in here that I'm using this to test it out. You can share it over AirDrop. So one of the things that I did was I AirDropped it to my phone, and then it imported it there. But since I'm using iCloud, it's set to synchronize. You can choose either. You can either choose to only keep passkeys on your device and not interact with the cloud at all. You can use it device only. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm using iCloud because I do trust it. But I know there are people who, maybe you work at a company or you just don't want to use the cloud. Passkeys are for you as well. You can see that if I wanted to, I could delete the passkey. I could edit it and add some things to it. This is how I can get into my password manager within the Mac OS operating system. And I can use my watch to unlock it, or my Touch ID. And you can see it says Passwords is trying to airdrop a passkey from your iCloud keychain. So this is where I actually clicked the share icon and went to share it to my iPhone. And so at every step of the way, you've got to use a biometric. You've got to use something. Now, if I didn't have Touch ID on my Mac, then this is where I would enter my admin password. And then this is what it looks like when I'm airdropping. So I chose my phone. So I did that. I successfully transferred a passkey that I set up from my Mac to my phone. I didn't have to do that. It would have synchronized eventually, but that was just to walk you through that. This talks about like how can you, I started to think, well, I don't want to just keep my passkeys just in iCloud. I want to be able to put this stuff into 1Password as well. So I looked this up. There is a way, if you, let's say you don't have a password manager like 1Password, I'm going to just pick on 1Password for this. If you only were using iCloud, there is a way that you can export your passwords and get them from one place to the other. And that walks you through how to do it. But it turned out in this scenario for this particular company Passage, I actually didn't have to worry about exporting. This is the other great thing about passkeys is you can create multiple passkeys for different places. So for example, you can see there, I had already created a passkey just by clicking the button and giving it my Touch ID. It saved it. It shows you that it's stored it's been implemented with iCloud Keychain. And now I'm going to try to get it through 1Password. And so as you can see up here, when I go to use 1Password, it shows me that I've saved it in 1Password. So I chose, I chose to add a new passkey, and I walked it, I just followed the instructions and walked through. And this time I waited for this little pop-out to show up, and then I clicked save. Now this will show up if you have both turned on. So this is an example where I have kind of like competing services. I have iCloud offering to save my passkeys, but I also have 1Password. So this is just to illustrate that you can do both. You can choose one or the other, or you could do both. I've chosen to use both. One of the areas that you're going to want to investigate, if this is something that you want to explore further, is you might have to experiment with, in like where I did here, with unchecking this extension and turning it off. Like I also have the Bitwarden one in here. You might have to, because they compete and they might get in each other's way sometimes. And that's just with, the popover window that shows up. So you might have to experiment with unchecking these boxes. So here's an example of where I have successfully created 2 passkeys, one in 1Password and one in iCloud. And at any given time, like let's say, for example, I decided that I didn't want to use 1Password anymore, I could go in there and simply delete it. So you can edit multiple passkeys. Here's another demonstration. This one is called passkey.org. And it's the same kind of thing, but I'm showing you this because one of the things that is that might throw people off a little bit is that there's no consistent user interface, because each website is different, each website is unique and has its own way of designing things. It just so happens that in the first example, the area to enter the field is on the right-hand side. So that's one thing that's consistent about it. But you can see how, it's usually pretty straightforward. It gives you a place to enter your username. Now, in the first example, it did want an email address. In this example, this one doesn't work with email. This one just wanted a screen name. So this is an example of that. So I said, okay, I'm going to try it out. Now, the reason why I get this message is because I actually had already tried this the night before, and I did that on purpose because I really tried to mess with it. I really tried to make mistakes and see what would happen if I forgot, but it tells you that it's already registered. And so I had done it twice. I ended up with 2 passkeys. And then I got myself into a situation where I was like, okay, well, now one of them doesn't work and one of them does. Which one is it? I had to remember that, it was either the light pink one or the purple one. You can go in here and you can change this stuff. So I was just messing around with this. So I got myself into trouble, and then I was able to fix myself. So you can see here, again, I was able to create 2 passkeys, both on my Mac. If I had done it on my iPhone, it would have showed up that I had done it in my iPhone. And it tells you, that you have multiple passkeys. Why would you want to do that? I mean, that's really for the purposes of having multiple devices. If I had, say, an iMac and then a MacBook Pro and then maybe an iPad or an iPhone, like maybe I wanted a passkey for each of my devices, then they would be listed here. So that's something that you can try out on your own. The link to this is on that reference that I sent into the chat room. So download that and you can look for the passkey.org and try it out yourself. And those are just, for practice. Here's another message that you might see. When you're going to sign back in, it asks you, and you'll always notice that it has this little logo up here. It has a little person with a key next to it. That's how you know that you're interacting with a passkey and not your regular average password. And so, it asks you how you want to sign in. The security key, I'm going to show you the other handout too. If you notice the little picture, it shows you, it looks like a little USB device. That's exactly what that is. That's a hardware key. So sometimes people who work in industry and companies, they don't even deal with devices. They actually have a USB key that they'll plug into a computer. And that's what that's about. So here's an example of where I went in and I edited the passkey. I deleted one so that I could see what that would look like. And then here's an example of what it looks like in 1Password. So when it gets stored, notice how you don't see anything. Like there's nothing to click. There's nothing to see. You can add notes. You can see like when you created them, if you might have modified them, like I added a note to this one. You can change the title here, but there's really nothing else to really look at. It stores the website so that it knows what it belongs to. Here's an example with Google. So, and this one, I wanted to show you guys what this looks like. So I have a Google Workspace account. And I don't know how many people here might have that, but just in case you ever run into this where maybe you've been given an email address, and because this is like a newish type of technology that people are just now starting to implement, you might run into this scenario. So this is what it would look like if you do. So I have this Google account. It's a business account. And I go to log in. And then I want to create a passkey, but I get stopped. And it says your admin has not enabled passkeys for this sign-in. I am the admin. I am the one who knocks. But I just wanted to see what it would be like for a regular user who isn't an admin. And so I ignored that information and I thought, okay, let's just see what happens. So I went to try to create a passkey anyway. And then I said, okay, I want to update the existing password login that I have. I wanted to update it with the additional pass key. So I chose the update existing here. But as you can see, I'm getting stuck here and it's telling me that it encountered a problem. So if you're not allowed to, you're not allowed to. And this is another one of those security features is, you can't create a passkey unless you've been given the permission to do so. And so I tried to get into it. I tried to make one. And then let's see, finally, then I had to go back here and I had to turn some of these toggle switches off. So this is another place you might want to look in your system settings under passwords. You're going to see these toggle switches here. So I needed to have this turned on. I thought, okay, well, I'm having a problem. Why does he keep telling me I have a problem? I knew what the problem was. I knew that it was because I hadn't given myself admin privilege to do it. But this is also something that can trip you up that I've noticed in playing around with it. You have to make sure that that toggle switch is on so that it will autofill it. So now you can see that all the switches are on. And then this is what it looks like when that switch is turned on. And then it still told me that something was wrong. It's still telling me about the admin. So I'm like, okay, I know that that's the deal. So I had to go in and give myself permission. So if you run into this situation, if you get that message, it's because you might have been given an email address that's been set up by an administrator. And so they have to go into this panel here and they have to check this check mark here and say that they're allowed to skip the passwords and use passkeys. So that's what that's about. Now that I've been given myself permission, I can go and create a passkey. And then this is what it would look like if that was already set up for you. And as you can see, it's just very simple. I just click this button, create a passkey. It's going to tell me what it is and educate me about it. And then I get a choice here. So I'm choosing to use 1Password to store this passkey. Now, because I already have a Google login credential saved in 1Password, I can either create a whole new item or I can update the existing one. And when I first started making passkeys, I wasn't sure about it because I was still just experimenting. And my fear was that I was going to overwrite my password. And then what if it didn't work? I didn't know anything about it at the time. And I thought that I was going to overwrite the password and then I wouldn't be able to get logged in again. Like, what if I got locked out of my account? So I didn't want to do that originally. But as I experimented with it, I learned that it's totally fine to just click update existing because it's just going to add the passkey to it. It doesn't take away your existing password. So they know that we're still going to be using passwords for quite a long time yet. So in 1Password, you can keep both of those pieces of information. So now that I've chosen to create a passkey, now it wants my Touch ID. So I give it my Touch ID or my password if I didn't have this set up. And now it's created. And then I click done. And that's really all there is to it. It shows you here that I've created it with iCloud Keychain and that I also went to save it in 1Password as well. 1Password will show you through the Watchtower service when you have a login that will offer to get you set up with a passkey. And so you can click that and it'll walk you through it. And I think this is where, so I already created the one with iCloud Keychain. This is where then I started to create one with 1Password. So I added a new one. It's on the same account. I just added another second one just because I can. And now this shows me that I was able to save that passkey with 1Password. And this time the icon is green. It was purple before. I haven't quite noticed that. I don't have that many. I haven't signed into all of the Google accounts yet. It could be that when it's Google, it's green through 1Password, and maybe it's purple with iCloud. That'll be something to look at. So here's where it shows you that I have one of each. And that's just because I was experimenting with it. This is what it now looks like now that I've saved. So I showed you what it looked like in 1Password. This is what it looks like in my Mac password section. Now here's an interesting thing I wanted to point out. So you can see how you can share and you can create groups of passwords. So for example, we have a family member who we're supporting, we're taking care of her healthcare, and she doesn't have the ability to do this stuff on her own. So we have her passkey now stored and it's shared amongst the family members so that we can get her authentication codes. That's going to be like a whole other topic I'm going to research in the future as to how we can use passkeys for supporting someone as a caregiver. So that's what that looks like. And then you can see this is the Google entry. I can add notes if I wanted to. So now you can see, remember how I said I was kind of scared, like, oh, is it going to overwrite my password? Well, no, it doesn't. You can see now that it retained that information. It has my username, it has my password there, and now it added the passkey. So you can just update that account as you go to start doing this on your own. Now here's where I go to log back in. So this is what it looks like now. It doesn't present me with my username and password. I've already clicked on my profile in the browser, and now I'm going to log in. I'm going to click continue, and I'm going to choose to use my passkey. And all I do is click that button. It already found me and it logged me in. It was like so easy. So let's do another one. Here's Apple ID. This is what it would look like. Now, there's a little bit of a gotcha with Apple ID. You can't save your Apple ID passkey to 1Password yet. And I'll show you what that looks like in a sec. So here I am logging into my Apple ID. I've put in my email address and it offers the passkey to me. You do have to make sure that you have this stuff checked on when you're doing this. So I just brought this up to point that out to you. That's in Safari. Under the Safari settings, you click on this autofill button here and you make sure that that's checked. And you can click sign in with passkey. Now here's where I was trying to see if I could save it to 1Password. And I'll show you where you can find out this information. But if you note here, it says you are not yet able to save passkeys for Apple ID accounts in third-party credential managers and can only be stored in iCloud passwords at this time. See, they're starting to call them credential managers. This I wanted to show you because you guys were talking about the stolen device protection, and this here, you get this message once you have it turned on in your device section in your Apple ID. So be on the lookout for that. This is what it looks like once I've created a passkey. It just offers to use my Touch ID. And if I don't have Touch ID, I could enter my password. And now I'm signed in. I experimented with keeping these checked on and off here because I was getting competing information as far as 1Password. So just know that you can go in there and you can toggle those on and off. Okay, these are some of the references that I gave you. So this is just for you to check it out. So for example, I would encourage you to go and like try it with Best Buy. So this is one directory. There's a couple of different companies now that keep directories so that you can look up and find out, okay, is this company that I want a passkey for this company? Is it available yet? For example, 1Password has a passkeys.directory. That's the link. And I heard a rumor that Best Buy had one. So I just typed in the word best in the search field here. And sure enough, it came in. It tells me that it is supported, the category. So I went about to add a passkey to my Best Buy account. So here's what that looks like with 1Password. It tells me, yep, there's a passkey available. I can set that up if I want to. So I went ahead and did it. I went to the website and I'm presented with this. You can see how this is now the login screen. So passwords aren't going away anytime soon, but as you start to adopt using passkeys, you won't have to worry about this anymore. Like you can just totally forget about looking at this. And all you're going to do from now on is just click this one button here, and that's it. So I don't have it set up yet, but if I did, all I would do is just click that. So here's what it looks like to set up a Best Buy. And this is what I encourage you to try. You start out with your username and password, just like you normally do, whether that's keying in manually, whether you have your password saved in Safari, or whether you have it saved in 1Password or another credential manager. And so you sign in the first time, like you do normally. Then you verify, like you do normally. Again, all of this stuff, you don't have to worry about it anymore with a passkey. All of this stuff goes bye-bye. So you still have to, for the first time, as you start to get set up, you have to verify your email address, put in the code that it emails you, and then it verifies you. Okay. Now I'm logged into my account, and now I'm going to go here under the account settings, and I'm going to look for this. It says passkey, it says face or fingerprint sign in. So I'm going to click that. And then it tells me that I can create a passkey. Click that button. I mean, it's seriously just clicking buttons. And then 1Password offers to save it. Again, if I was using iCloud, if I didn't have those, if I had those boxes checked in Safari, I wouldn't be looking at this. Instead, it would be iCloud. It would be my Apple fingerprint popping up to tell me if I wanted to save it with iCloud. But in this instance, I'm choosing to use 1Password. And again, I already have a username and password. I'm just going to update what I already have, what already exists. And I'm going to add the passkey to it and click Save. This is just to show you what the difference is. I did decide to just update the existing. And now I click Save, and it tells me that it's saved. And that's all I had to do. I didn't have to type in anything. And as you can see here, there's a little green icon again. So again, I'm not sure what the green and the purple differentiation is yet, but it tells me that I'm all set. So I've already created my passkey. Now, the next time I go to sign in, remember how I said before, you can forget about looking at this part here. All I have to do is click this button. This pops up, and I click this button, and I'm in. That's it. This is what it looks like logging me in, and then I'm in. And that's my demonstration for how to create passkeys and get logged in. And that's like, seriously, that's all there is to it. It sounds complicated because I'm going over it multiple times, but just to reiterate and show you just how simple it is. This is the other handout that I gave you. I thought this was a really good handout. I didn't feel the need to reinvent the wheel because they explain it so well here. This is for YubiKey. This is a hardware company who makes the USB keys. And this talks about what passkeys are. Talks about FIDO. I'll show you what that is in a little bit. What they are. The takeaways, the biggest takeaway is that it can't be phished. When I say it can't be phished and you can't accidentally log into a spoof website, that's another big problem. Is I see in my field of work, I see a lot of people do this. They say they want to log into iCloud.com. Instead of using their password manager and clicking on the link that they know is secure, because they've been there, they've seen the padlock and everything, they'll be in a hurry and they'll just type iCloud.com really fast in the address bar. Well, what happens if you misspell it as you're typing it really quickly? What happens if you just do a Google search and you click on the first result that shows up? What can happen is hackers, because remember, this is, billion with a B, $1 billion industry. These scammers, they have so much money to burn that they can afford to purchase, they can afford to spoof websites. They can afford to purchase the search results that show up so that when you click on it, you could end up going to what you think is iCloud, but it's actually a copycat of that website. And then you go and you enter, you dutifully enter your credentials with your password manager. But guess what? You just gave the criminals your login. So that can happen even with a password manager, because like I said, they can be spoofed and that information can be phished from you. Whereas with a passkey, there's no password. There's nothing for them to get. There's no key logging. They're not recording your keystrokes. There's nothing for them to record. You're not copying and paste anything. You're clicking a button and it's just pushing it through. This talks about authenticators. Again, you can take a look at this, but I just wanted you to give you a preview to see that it was actually worth looking at. And they explain it pretty well. This talks about whether or not you want to use synced passkeys versus hardware passkeys. Remember I said earlier that sometimes you might be in a situation where you don't want to use the cloud, or you can't use the cloud. It might not be allowed. And so you might want to choose to use a hardware key instead. So one of the questions is, is it for you? This will help you answer that question. I'm going to guess that most of us are probably okay with using the synchronization in the cloud. But there are those people that might still want to use the hardware key. So that's that reference. And then I have, I just wanted to show you really quickly, I'm not going to go through all of this, but on that reference, on that handout, there are lots of links. And these are the links. This is a good letter that Allison Sheridan from the Nosilla podcast wrote. And this is basically telling us it's okay. It's going to feel like it's a scam. It's going to feel like it's too good to be true. But this is actually a legitimate security practice, and you do want to use this. This is a really good article that I encourage you to read that talks about the questions. You might have some of these questions right now, and this is going to answer a lot of those questions. This is the demonstration that I showed you. There's this one, there's this one. And then this is just the company Passage. Like I said, they're a company, they're a developer, and they're making a product for companies. I just used it because it was a good looking interface. It was nice and simple and clean. And I wanted to illustrate just how simple it is, where you just literally, you put in your email address or a username, and you click the button, and you click a button, and you're done. This is the FIDO Alliance I was talking about. This is the organization that is responsible for the standard and in the cryptography and all the math and everything that goes into it. This is another one of those registry lists similar to this one, where you can go to this one here and you can do a search. You can even sort it by consumer versus workforce. And now you can see here, like 1Password, for example, has a learn more button. And that's because they're a little bit further in the game as far as implementing passkeys than some of these other places. So for example, Bank of America doesn't have passkeys set up. They're in the alliance, but they're not there yet. So at least they're in the alliance. It means that they have agreed that they're going to implement passkeys, but they're not there yet. But as I just showed you, Best Buy is. And so when I click on that, it tells me that that I can use, it takes me to the site, it takes me to the legit site, and you can see I can just sign into it right there. And then this is from Apple. I wanted you to see this because one of the questions is going to be, well, is it right for me? Can I use it? And here's the answer from Apple, that you must have iOS 7, iPad. I think they mean, is that a typo? I think they mean 17, don't they? Do they really mean iOS 7? iPad OS 13, 10.9. Yeah, that's possible. Those are what's required, except for passkeys. Those, okay, they're talking about iCloud keychain, so that makes sense. But except for passkeys, you do have to have 16 or above. And you have to have macOS 13 or later. So those are the system requirements for that. This is another really great article that I would encourage you to look over that's in that handout. And same with this one. This one talks about how if you are a 1Password user, you can set up a test account and use their beta program so that you could see what life would be like to be able to use a passkey to unlock your vault. And I'm excited to try that out. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And does anybody have any questions?
I got one.
Just one?
Well, more, but I tried passkeys with Amazon.
Okay.
Passkey I create on my Mac does not work on my iOS devices. It requires a separate passkey.
Mhm.
What happens to the person who sets up, only has, say, a computer or an iPad, sets up an account with something that has a passkey? They're syncing it to the cloud, so they think, oh, I'm safe. But suddenly their device breaks, or they send it into Apple. Apple replaces the logic board. Now their passkey doesn't work. It's a new device, but they don't have passwords.
Mhm.
So what's the workaround in that scenario?
So that's a great question to ask, and everybody should be asking themselves that question before they start diving into this. What is going to be your recovery plan? So before you go into this, have a recovery plan. I do because I've got my passwords in iCloud. I've got them in 1Password. I've got them on my husband's device. You know, have them backed up in places, in other words. So what is the workaround? Well, you would have had to have thought ahead and make sure that you have your Apple ID and your Apple ID password on a hard copy somewhere stored safe so that you can log back into iCloud. Because basically, as long as you've enabled all those check boxes, your passkeys can be, if you want them to be, they can be stored in iCloud. In
Not for
iCloud
Amazon.
keychain.
Right, but on Amazon, every unique device has to have its own passkey.
But you can't save it in iCloud keychain. See, I have mine in
Oh,
1Password.
you can save it in iCloud keychain,
Mhm.
but the passkey that I set up on my Mac
Mhm.
is not usable on my iPhone. It's
Hmm.
only usable on my Mac.
Mhm. I
So
know that Amazon was a little screwy when we tried it out. When we tried it out the first time, it wasn't as smooth, but that was a couple months ago.
right, but there are a lot of sites that require, like a lot of the banking sites will require you to have a separate passkey on each device.
Mhm.
Like say, for example, I just signed up with I went over to Bank of America or whatever, created an account. They said, well, create your account, log in. They said, well, you could use a passkey instead of a password,
Mhm.
so you don't have to remember it. I set up with a passkey. It's only for that device only. I don't have another device. 6 months down the road, something happens to that device and it gets replaced. How do you get access to your account if you no
You're not
longer have
using-
your passkey?
You're not using 1Password? Because I would think 1Password be, or a password credential manager would be the answer for that.
But even a
be
credential
able to access
password
that.
manager, that passkey is device specific.
But it is stored in your 1Password.
Right, but it cannot be used on another device, is what I'm saying.
Well, you can change the title. So you can say this is the passkey for the iPhone and this is the passkey for the Mac. So you
Right,
can
but what I'm
store
saying is
multiple
say you
entries.
only have one device.
Yeah.
And you only have one passkey.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Right. Yeah. Mhm.
That then something
Mhm.
happens to that device, you get a second device,
Mhm.
or Apple repairs it, has a brand new UUID number.
Right,
So
'cause
that
it's on the hardware.
passkey
Yeah.
is no longer valid for that device.
Mhm.
You're locked
Most
out
of
of your
those
account.
Most of those accounts, from what I've seen so far, they still have that recovery option where you can relog into it with your email address. And as long as you have a working email address, they'll send you recovery instructions. You just have to reset up the passkey again. So you're right, that passkey is tied to that hardware. But that's why I was
Right,
showing you too, where you can, that's why they give you the option to be able to click the X and delete them. Because that would have been that scenario where I got a brand new phone because mine took a dump in the river and can't be repaired, and I have a brand new phone. So I don't need that passkey for that old phone anymore. It's not
right.
necessarily named for it, but I can tell based on the date that it was created.
And
So you
using
can set up multiple
1Password,
passkeys.
but using 1Password with a long password
Mhm.
is still, in my opinion, faster because you're using biometrics to log in. When I go to Amazon, it says, what's your password? I click on the 1Password link, put on my
Mhm.
fingerprint.
Yeah.
It fills in everything anyway.
Right.
Um,
That's because
and
you're
that's
using it
secure.
correctly. Yeah. Passkeys
Right.
are really for the people who just don't want to deal with that. You and I are using it the way it's meant to be used with a long, secure password and everything. But so many people just don't. So many people just don't want to be bothered with it. And I understand that. It's just it's a lot more work. We're nerds and we like digging into this stuff. But passkeys are really for that, the simple person who doesn't want to have to deal with creating a long, secure password.
So guys, I'm seeing something different. I set up Amazon about a year ago with a passkey.
Mhm.
And by the way, you must use the Safari browser. If you use DuckDuckGo, passkeys won't work.
Ah, okay, interesting. Yeah,
And
see, there's a gotcha.
now when I log in on the Mac, it is like instantaneous. The
Now,
login
you're
is
using the browser and not the Amazon app?
correct. I am
Okay.
using Safari.
Okay.
And it logs in microseconds. It is
Mhm.
so fast. It's unbelievable. Now, I have never tried this on my iPhone before. So I go onto the
give it
iPhone,
a
go
try.
into Safari, go to Amazon.com, and at the top, it's got the regular create and sign in, et cetera. Are you already a customer? But at the bottom, it says sign into Amazon.com with your saved passkey.
Mhm.
Use and the email address that was the original email address for Amazon, which is an old one, but it's still there. There it is. I've never looked at this before.
Well, you can't use
So-
the Amazon app and a passkey on that. It will not work. So
Okay,
Amazon
I'm just
app.
using the
works
browser
with-
though.
He's just using the browser though. He's just logging
Okay.
in using Safari.
Oh, okay, now it wants me to do OTP, which is
Right.
fine. It's probably going to
Mhm.
require that the first time. But what I'm saying
Yeah.
is I think the passkey came across to the iPhone.
I bet you if it's
Mhm.
asking you for OTP, it put your password in and not the passkey.
Oh, I don't
Are
know
you
about
using
that.
1Password with it too?
No.
Okay. See, I have 1Password, so mine just comes up with 1Password.
Yeah, I've tried with both ways.
I'd have to
and-
disable it. I would have to disable it to mess around with that.
Yep, and I'm in now.
But I
Yeah,
have,
but-
it has worked for me because I know what you're talking about and it has worked for me.
Yeah, I don't use the app, but I see the point. The app may have some specific stuff.
Mhm.
But with Safari, and I didn't have to create a separate one for the iPhone.
No, but if you
I never
log
thought
in with
about
your
it.
password on your Mac and then you go to the Safari on the phone, it'll use your password credentials. And that's what it sounds like what happened, because Amazon requires a passkey, a specific
each
passkey on a per device.
Mhm.
And a lot of passkeys are that way. That's why, Melissa, you were showing multiple passkeys on a site.
Mhm.
Because if you have an iPhone, that's one passkey, an iPad, that's a second passkey, then a Mac, that's a third passkey, then you should have a password, a username and a password as a backup.
Mhm.
So it's redundancy over redundancy over redundancy, which I think, especially at least the clientele that I have, which are all older people, it's going to turn them off.
Because of the redundancy or because
Because
not
the
having
redundancy,
redundancy?
well, you have to have a password anyway
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
most of these sites in order to use a passkey. So if you have the password already,
Mhm.
why not just use it?
Well, the idea that they're really trying to push is that we should get ready for it, that passwords are going to eventually go away because companies are going to start
Yeah.
realizing that by going with passkeys, they can protect their bottom line better because they're not phishable. So we kind of have to get used to the idea that companies are going to want to invest in this and they're going to want to go this way. So
Right.
yeah, you can
but
still
if you
use
have
your
to have
passwords now. You can pry them out of your cold dead hands. But eventually, push is going to come to shove and they're just going to offer passkeys.
Yeah.
Too many banks. I mean, too many people are getting hacked. And I mean, this is what it's really about is just, you can get SIM swapped, you can get hacked, you can get phished, you can get, all the social engineering that's going on. Banks and companies, they're losing so much money to hacks and scams. So it's going to be in their best interest to make it something that people will actually use. Yes, it's a turnoff in the beginning because it's new and people don't understand it. It's just that simple. So it doesn't seem like it could work. But
So-
it's time to start using it.
I restarted the phone
Mhm.
and went back into Safari, went back to the Amazon tab, and I'm in.
Right.
Great.
Safari will keep you logged in.
If you're using Safari for
until you sign out.
Oh, okay.
Two
Trying to
questions.
remember how to sign
Mm-hmm.
out.
I have two questions. One, let's say, let's reverse. When you're saying it's so much more secure, if you're on a Starbucks Wi-Fi and you want to log on to the bank, is this
Yeah.
secure?
Yes.
Technically, yes, because it's not transmitting the kind of data that passwords and those credentials. Because one of the other ways that they explain it is when you use a password, you're going to a website, you're essentially logging into a database that they maintain. And in their end, on their server, they have your password. You have your password, and then they have a copy of your password and your phone number and your demographics and all this other information that's used to build your identity. It's stored there. If they get hacked in transit as you're using public Wi-Fi, then yeah, your bank can get hacked. You can get phished. You can get, sent to a spoof site. Whereas with a passkey, there is no password. There's nothing to hack. There's nothing to intercept, if you will.
Yeah, that's okay. Second question though. So it's device specific and it's biometric.
It
So you
can be,
set it
yes.
up on your iPhone or your iPad and you're visiting a friend and you don't have either one with you and you want to log into your bank.
Mhm.
And you don't have password because you've gotten to that point in time where they won't use passwords anymore. How do you get into your bank?
You don't,
That'll be up to the
Oh.
bank to give you something. Like I know somebody had the example of like if you go to a public library or something and you want to log into a secure site, there's the ability to issue like a QR code. So you might be able to, as long as you can get it to the site and put in your email address, it should recognize you and then offer you something that you can then scan.
one of the things when the QR code box comes up,
Mhm.
it tells you to scan it with a device that has a
That has
passkey on it.
there. Yeah.
So yeah, you, at that point, you're locked out
Right.
until you're on a secure device, Mark.
They really do, like how Apple always says, you should use the camera that's always with you, which is your iPhone or your iPad. And this is kind of the same thing. You should use the device, you should use the key that's always with you. And that's going to be in your phone from now on. So that's what I was saying earlier about situational awareness. So that's a really great question. And it's good that you're thinking that far ahead. What happens if? So you need to make sure that you plan for that. You need to know that the answer is you won't be able to log in. You need to have that device. And then you need to have a plan for what happens if that device is stolen or lost. You need to have a plan for replacing it because, if you lost your house keys, you would have to go change your locks and get new house keys, wouldn't you? You just wouldn't be able to unlock your doors. You'd have to find a locksmith. I mean, this isn't really any different than that. You have to have some kind of a recovery plan in place. I mean, I say it's simple and it's so easy to use. But yeah, you do have to be thinking about those things that, again, your phone, all this stuff is stored on your phone. We now know, don't be typing in, use your Face ID if you can, use your Touch ID if you can. I realize I see it happen all the time. There are people who just simply cannot use Touch ID because they're on blood pressure medication or they have a lot of hand cream or they just simply don't have fingerprints. I know lots of people that just don't have fingerprints anymore. And so for them, that doesn't work. They have to type in their code. So in that case, if this, then that, if you have to type in your code, it better not be 4 digits. It better be 6, or it better be something complex. And you better make sure you have situational awareness and make sure that nobody's looking at you when you're doing that. It's a trade-off. So that scenario that you just explained is a trade-off. You're trading going and visiting your friend without your device, and so you don't get to log into your bank.
So back to your the original presentation about the new software for stolen phones. If someone gets your login code and they get your phone and it's
You better batten down the hatches.
your fingerprint, can they still get through? It's autofill.
That's why I enabled it right away, because that's the fail safe, is that sure, they can get your code, but then there's a list of very specific things like changing your password or changing your location, things like that require the biometrics. And that's why I said you got to be thinking about that stuff. It's biometrics is where it's at. If you can't use biometrics, then you have to be extra careful. Then that's going to be a trade-off.
Okay, Melissa, when you started, you said, I don't know if this is going to take a half an hour. It's been an hour.
All right. Well, I hope it was interesting. I hope I answered your questions.
That was amazing.
We have a couple questions in the chat that I want to at least touch on. First of all, Lori asked if, I think she was referring to the stuff that Ridge was talking about security, if a VPN will help you with that. And the answer I gave her was, it depends. Some of those things, yes, a VPN would help, some wouldn't. And Lori, I would encourage you to come to the early session next month and talk about that in the Ask Me Anything session.
I know for a fact that 1Password will import, because a lot of people have found themselves in that situation after LastPass, and they will import your passwords. It might not be perfect, but they will import them. So
you
don't worry about you won't have to rekey everything. No.
So you've answered Lori's next question. So I wanted to let everybody know that I have downloaded the documents that you put in the chat and then added them to TMUG Talk. And if you have any other things to add, do that, just reply to that message in TMUG Talk and add it that way. Okay, I think what we want to do next is do the important part, which is the drawing. Also to remind you that Bob Doms just put the feedback form back in the chat again. We would encourage you to click on that and fill out that form at your leisure and send it off to us because it really does help us. So, Melissa, can you pick the winner for us for the monthly door prize? And I need you to ask your S lady to pick a number between 1 and 25.
Let's see if the iPad will do it. Pick a random number between 1 and 25. Survey says 12.
12. 12 is Diana Mueller.
Yay!
Diana, are you still here? Yeah, she is.
Oh my
She fell
goodness,
asleep.
yes,
I put her to sleep.
Okay. I plan to send that gift card off to you tomorrow. And if you don't get it tomorrow, rattle my cage and I will send it again, or I will remember to send it after you've told me, hey, stupid, you didn't send the gift card. So I am going to.
Real quick, Lori has a question. She just tuned in. She was multitasking. I know what that's like. She wanted to know what the last part was about not having to type all the passwords in. So the question she asked about LastPass is that if you want to use one password, at least I know that one does, you can import them. You won't have to rekey in all of those passwords. There is a way to import that stuff. So just look on their website and there's probably instructions for it. But I've heard of people doing it. I know that it exists.
I know that LastPass had some security issues, but I think that they have straightened that stuff out, and LastPass is probably secure at this time, although it seems like most of us are using 1Password. Okay. And you can, Roger put in there, you can replay our meetings on YouTube, and the link is there, and it's also at the on the tmug.com in the newsletter and social media page that you can see the past stuff from TMUG. Okay, so Diana, you are the door prize
The
winner. And congratulations.
You see the
And
chat?
are there any other last minute questions?
Hey,
Yeah,
big
we're
thanks to Melissa for all of her research. Man, this is like 10 times more about Passkeys than I've ever heard.
I know that when we give Melissa a task, it will be most thoroughly researched.
Enjoy all the references. I
Thank
hope
you.
you find them as useful as I did.
I do have one more question. Years and years ago, there's something else with another name that talked about using public keys and private keys?
Yeah.
That's PGP. That's
Squirrel.
it's called Pretty Good Privacy. And
Okay.
what that does, that's for messaging or files where you encrypt the key or an email, and if the other person has your public key, they could then decrypt the file or email. Apple
Okay.
uses it. I get a lot of email from Apple that's encrypted, and it requires a PGP key.
Okay.
If you
It is
look on
similar
that-
technology, right?
I don't
Sounds like it. I'm not sure,
believe
though.
so, because
Yeah.
PGP
Really?
keys are RSA 4 kilobit string.
Could be that it's like
just
built upon that.
conceptually, the idea of public and
Yeah.
private keys and stuff.
Yeah, conceptually for sure. And also the fact that what makes Passkeys so much more simpler is the fact that all of the multi-factor stuff is baked into it. So that's why it's so much easier. It's there. It's just that you don't have to really interface with it. But the question that you asked about that private key, public key. One of the episodes that I linked to, for people who like podcasts, there's a smattering, there's articles that you can just read. There's a podcast, and I linked to the transcript so that you don't have to listen to the whole thing if you don't want to. You could read the transcript or read it as you're listening along. But they do kind of do like a little skit, and they really explain very thoroughly how the encryption works, how the sausage is made, so to speak. So if that
Okay.
does anything to put your mind at ease.
Mhm.
So hopefully it'll become a fad.
Okay,
Oh, I
the
think they're
last,
great.
thing is, we need Mr. Roger to save the chat and send it off to Susan for, the newsletter articles. And, all right. We're going to call time on this one. And thank you all for attending. Remember, next month, we're going to have a live demo of Vision Pro with our friend Marty, who will be back to give us that information. So, good night, all. Happy Valentine's Day. We'll see you next month.
Night
Good
all.
night, everyone.
Don't
Good night.
forget President's Day, Bob.
Yes.
And President's Day, and a few others too.
Melissa, I may get in touch with you about G Suite.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sounds
I don't know what the heck is going on with it.
Oh,
I'm
are you
lost.
stuck?
Yeah, I'll send you an email.
Okay.
Thanks
Yeah, and
again for the Passkeys stuff.
Sure.
I may get in touch with you about more questions on Passkeys.
Well, do your homework first.
Yeah, I've been doing homework on
save
it
your
for
handout.
months, and it's
Kevin,
confusing on
you've
some
been
things.
advised, Kevin.
Ask 3 before you ask me.
Take care, guys.
Have a good one.
Bye. Good night.
Night.